Hello everybody, happy Holly year, happy new days, whichever works. Point is, we are coming to the end of 2020 and it's time for another top number video. This is something new actually that I wanted to do as I was thinking about stuff earlier in this year, and I wanted to make it another thing that I do on top of the top 10 acquisitions video like I've been doing, but that's probably not going to happen in the future, but I still wanted to do it this time. As you can probably guess from the title of the video, this is a top 5 customs video. I did actually do enough custom work this year that I thought it might be fun to try and rank my favorite customs. Now there were some liberties taken. Some of these customs were customs that I did before this year, but I added to them or refined them further this year, so they still count as a custom from this year. I tried to kind of mix it up and not get too many figures from Cyberverse because I did a lot of Cyberverse customs in the past year, but there are quite a few on there. I also do want to apologize. I normally try to have videos done on at least the top 5 figures that I have in my top whatever lists, because I want to be able to do the card in the corner pop-up thing, so you all can check that video out if you want to, but due to time constraints and other reasons that I'll get into when I get to the number 1 custom, I don't have videos on all of them. So my apologies for that. I tried, wasn't able to do it. So with that out of the way, let's kick things off with the honorable mentions, because of course I'm going to do honorable mentions. So we've got 5 honorable mentions and then the top 5. The honorable mentions are kind of in a loose-ish order, just in terms of personal preference, but it's, again, just kind of whatever. And the first honorable mention goes to Cyberverse Ultra Class Thunderhowl, because I didn't do a custom of the Deluxe Class, because, as I said in the video for this guy, the Deluxe Class is such a jumbled, inaccurate mess in terms of the coloration and design of, like, the figure compared to the animation model. The Deluxe is a good figure. It is a very good figure. It's just very inaccurate to the show. So because of that, that's why I went with the Ultra Class figure, because it is much more accurate to the show, so it was a lot less that I had to paint. I do like how this guy came out. I just feel like it's a little too dull. There is some nice silver in there. The yellow for the eyes does pop really nicely, but the color palette overall is just kind of subdued. I feel like if there were brighter colors in there, I'd probably be more into this, but I still like what I did, and I like having a more or less show-accurate Thunderhowl for the shelf, and I even like the fact that it's the Ultra Class, because since he's an Ultra Class, he's a bit bigger than his typical Deluxe classes, and I feel like that kind of works for how he was in the show. Next, we have that thing I was talking about earlier about a custom that I did in a year before this, but I added to that custom this year, so it still counts. And that is pretty much the only custom I did that with, which is Animated RC. I liked where this custom was when I did it the first time, but I also liked that I went back in, did some extra coats to like bump up the colors a bit, cleaned some things up, actually went in and painted the head almost completely. I think it's just the face and the chin strap that I didn't paint on the head at this point. Also cleaned up the lips, because the first time I put a little red on there, I actually kind of missed one corner of the mouth, so went in and cleaned that up. Did the back pods. I love this. This is one of my favorite customs ever. The only reason it didn't rank higher this year is because I felt like I did a lot of stuff this year, and while I'm extremely proud of how this came out, the amount of work I did to it this year really wasn't that much. Next honorable mention is, funny enough, another RC. This time it is Cyberverse Adventures Deluxe RC. This figure does have its problems, I will admit. It's very similar to Earthrise RC in the entire robot just kind of accordions up underneath the car mode thing, but I do really like how this custom turned out. It is a shame that I wasn't able to fully go, like I couldn't go for full show accuracy because of the way that the figure transforms. I didn't want to worry about paint rub. And because of the paints that I have, I couldn't get a exact match to some of the tones. But I feel like the workarounds that I used do pull it off. And I like having, like, Cyberverse RC was just a fun character, and I like having a good, solid, mostly accurate representation, or at least relatively accurate representation of her on the shelf. Okay, we're getting close to the top 5, but a couple more honorable mentions to get through, and one of those is Cyberverse Ultra Class Clobber. I said there was going to be a lot of Cyberverse on this list, but it's not entirely Cyberverse. Clobber was just a fun character. I really enjoyed this project. There were some aspects that were a little annoying, like the feet, because of the way that they transform and stuff, but I really like how this turned out, even though the purples don't really match. It was a fun project, and I really like seeing how much nicer the Ultra class of all things can look when it's just painted up a little bit more. It's a fun toy, too. Like, the transformation is pretty fun. There's some really interesting stuff going on with the waist. The alt mode is a thing that exists, but the gimmick is neat. The gimmick is neat. The gimmick is... There we go. But yeah, the gimmick is neat. And it's just, like I said, it's a fun toy. But it's a fun toy that also actually does look pretty cool once you get it painted, and yeah. I don't know, I like this figure. I think the character is neat, and I like the custom job they did on it. And I like the custom job they did on it. Fingers crossed we get a Cyberverse Adventures Deluxe Clobber, maybe? Okay, final honorable mention goes to another Cyberverse figure. I can't say we're done with the Cyberverse figures, but I do guarantee you that the top 5 has fewer Cyberverse figures than not Cyberverse figures in it. But there is one more Cyberverse figure to talk about in the honorable mentions, and that is Cyberverse Adventures Deluxe Class Grimlock. And I know Grimlock was a departure in the show from his usual G1 self. I am not bothered by that in the slightest. I thought he was a fun character. He and RC were a really fun team, and having both of them on the shelf painted up to look more show accurate has just been great. The design and proportions are really cool. It's pretty spot on to the show, and with that extra paint, it looks pretty darn spot on in my mind. Granted, I could have done a better job in places. I could have been cleaner. I could tweak things a bit here and there. Overall, I'm just absolutely enamored with Grimlock, and I'm very glad that I painted him because I think this looks pretty darn good. Okay, now we're getting into the top 5, and number 5 is the most expensive figure that I customized on this list, MSRP-wise. Not necessarily aftermarket price-wise. It's also the only third-party figure that I have on this list that I customized this. Well, it's the only one that I have on the list. I don't believe it's the only third-party figure I customized this year. But anyway, that is Mastermind Creations Reformatted Aether Beta. They're Deadlock. And I love this figure, the mold is great, and I missed it so much after I sold it. I was really glad to get it again. And now that I've been doing all the custom stuff, as I said in this guy's video, I was just kind of like, the yellow mustardy color paint that they put in some of the details really bothers me. I'm more confident in my customizing skills. I'm gonna paint it gold. And I just love how it looks. It still has the same deco, it still has the same feel to it, but now that ugly yellow is replaced with gold, which I think looks so much better. And then also the little bits of red that I added in a few places, and of course the eyebrows, because you gotta have the eyebrows, right? I love how this came out. It's, not perfect, but it's a really cool figure, and I really, really like how it's such a overall simple concept in terms of like what to paint turned out so well, made such a difference with the figure. Moving right along to number 4, you could say maybe cutting through the water like a knife, or a shark fin, because sharks. It's Cyberverse Action Attackers, I think. Hammerbite. This figure, as just a figure, as a toy, is great. He was in my top 10 toys list for a good chunk of the year. The main reason I took him off was because I wanted to put other stuff on the list really badly, and also I figured I could kind of get around that by putting him in the customization list. So here he is, and I really like this toy, but I also really like how this custom turned out. I definitely had to take some liberties here and there, but what's funny is when I first started on the Cyberverse customization project back in, it was kind of partway through December of 2019, so it's been about exactly a year since I started this project. But when I first started the project, I think I did okay with like Bumblebee and Optimus and Megatron and all that, but when I got Hammerbite, which was sometime later, I was kind of like, I don't think I have the capacity to paint this guy up to be more show accurate, and he doesn't have the parts in certain places and so on and so forth. But then after getting used to it, after getting some more practice in, I realized, no, I totally can pull it off. And I feel like I did pull it off. and I just really like how this works. There's definitely some things that I could have done better, definitely some things that I could have done rather than not do, but yeah, for what it is, I really like it. And now we come to number 3, which is regrettably one of the only figures on this list that I don't have a proper video for. I guess I'll link to this one if you want to check that out, and also it kind of spoils what the number 3 figure is. But yeah, Transformers Prime Soundwave. This is the one that I was saying might actually be the most expensive figure on the list, because the aftermarket prices on this guy are kind of irresponsible. Maybe I was being ridiculous to paint this figure when it commands such a high price, but I absolutely adore Transformers Prime Soundwave's design, so I don't see myself ever really wanting to sell this figure unless I, have to. So I didn't really mind going in and painting him, and I feel like the stuff that I added is just like a little bit of blue here and there, and then added some pink highlights here and there, but I feel like that little bit is enough. There are some things that I could paint to make more show accurate, but then I start to run into problems with paint rubbing up on things if I move them or transform them or whatever, and I don't want to do that. So just stuck with kind of a basic approach, and I feel like it worked out really darn well. I just love this design. I know people have their issues with it. Me personally, I love this concept for Soundwave. It's my favorite concept for Soundwave in the entirety of Transformers fiction as far as I know of. Granted, I haven't read the comics, but in terms of shows, this is my favorite Soundwave. Okay, top 2. This is the last Cyberverse figure, I promise. There's no more Cyberverse figures in this list. But, of course, I had to go with the Cyberverse Adventures Deluxe Build-A-Figure of McAdam. This guy has been a kind of chomping at the bit to get done project. Labor of love, I guess you could say, also for the past year or so. I got the first wave of Cyberverse Adventures Deluxes back in December and got some of the parts from McAdam. It was kind of like, I really want to finish this figure. Then I started watching Cyberverse, and I mean, who doesn't love McAdam and Cyberverse? Because how could you not? Once that was done, it was kind of like, I really can't wait to get the rest of the parts for this guy, and I was so looking forward to finishing the project, and I finally did. Aside from a handful of details and maybe a couple of spots where I feel like I could have been a little bit cleaner with the application, I could not be happier with how this turned out. I am exceptionally proud of this, despite the fact that I do know that there are plenty of imperfections and inaccuracies in it. It was a project that I was looking forward to doing for so long, and I'm so glad I got to do it. I feel like I more or less lived up to my own expectations with the results. Okay, number 1. So the reason I don't have a video on the number 1 figure is because it is a Flame Toys model kit. The reason why that's significant is because of what happened earlier this year with Flame Toys. In particular, the whole thing with the Windblade model kit that they were making. I don't have a problem with that Windblade kit existing. I don't have a problem with other people liking it. I don't have a problem with other people getting it. My problem stems with, first off, the criticisms that I feel like were very well deserved with how you've got these, really cool guy robot model kits like Hot Rod, and I think they did like a figure for Optimus Primal and stuff like that looked cool. And then they have a hentai artist draw up a design for Windblade, one of the most beloved fan characters. As I said, I don't begrudge anyone for liking the design, and I don't begrudge anyone for wanting to get a model kit of the design. I don't begrudge Flame Toys for making the model kit. I do think it was a misstep to have some rando porn artist do the design and not, someone who worked on the actual comic. But even though I'm not a fan of the design, the fact that it exists is fine. The problem that I had with the whole Flame Toys thing was their response to not the criticism, but to the horrendous backlash that the people who rightly criticized the Windblade design got. It was just a mess. People got harassed really badly, and Flame Toys thanked the fans for their enthusiasm and passion for the Windblade model, and that just didn't sit right with me. Because of that, I didn't feel comfortable making a proper video on this kit because I just personally can't get behind that. Again, not saying other people are wrong for supporting Flame Toys or buying their stuff. I'm not saying that at all. It's just me personally not comfortable with it, and I hope you all can respect that. At the same time, I was also really proud of the work that I put into it because it was like a good week or two of slowly working on the model, and I put a lot of work into it. I used so many references and so many photos, and I'm really proud of how it turned out, and I want to show it off. So despite my issues with Flame Toys as a company and how they handle all of that stuff, I am exceptionally proud of how Furai model Drift turned out. This was, as I said, an absolute project. I think I poured more time and attention into this than any one custom that I did this entire year. And that includes panel lining Jetfire, Skylynx, Primus. This was such a long project, and it was so hard to be patient with it because I really, really wanted to get it done because I was so excited about it. And I finally did, and it was one of the most satisfying. Actually, no, it is the most satisfying thing I've done with any custom that I've done ever since I've started doing customs. It was a fun build. It's an extremely good kit. It looks amazing. The posability is fantastic. And I'm extremely proud. Even though I did get a little messy here and there are some improvements that I could have made and things I could have done differently and would have done differently in hindsight, I am extremely proud of how this turned out. And I should also mention there are no stickers on this. I did not apply any stickers to the kit at all. This is all either the plastic color itself or stuff that I panel lined or hand painted. This is the cape that I used on the Legendary Toys knockoff of the Striker Noir that I did for Nimbus September. I had this that I used as like an accessory, and when I got rid of that figure, I wanted to keep the cape, so I thought I'll put him on Drift, and I think it looks pretty cool on Drift. This is an extremely cool model, and I'm extremely proud of how it turned out. I just wish Flame Toys wasn't like they are. And that is it for my top 5 figure customs for 2020. Hopefully it won't be too long. Hopefully my soapboxing about Flame Toys won't carry on for too long once I've edited it down a little bit. It has been a year. This is probably the most customizing I've done in a given year, because of course it's going to ramp up once I start getting more comfortable with it. I have more projects planned. I've got other projects that I even recently completed. Some minor things that I did recently, like painting Siege Spinister's guns, which I think actually makes as much of a difference as I was hoping it would, because those guns just look so not good in just the base purple and blue plastic. I'm extremely proud of most of the customs that I've done. I just need to, keep practicing, need to keep finding more figures that I want to paint, and who knows, maybe one day I'll be as good as someone like Grimlockamus or Decepticon Customs. maybe someday. I don't know, but for the time being, I'm satisfied with my trajectory. Anyway, that is going to do it, as I said. If any of you did any custom work on any of your toys this year, feel free to let me know what some of your favorites were. If you feel so inclined, feel free to let me know what you think of any of the customs that I've talked about in this video. There's just one thing I want to make absolutely clear when it comes to the discussion around all of this, in particular the Flame Toys thing. No fighting! But other than that, feel free to discuss. I do enjoy hearing from you all. So thank you all for watching again. Happy New Days. Happy Holly Year. Hopefully 2021 will treat us all a little bit better.